From 2020 to 2022, I was getting just blasted by crypto guys who told me I knew nothing of what I was talking about and that crypto was the future. I was a dinosaur and I didn't understand what the future looked like. Well, guys, the first week of 2023, we're getting to see all these various crypto deals blow up. And I wanted to take some time to explain what's happening in a quick little video. So much news. Normally, I wouldn't cover a week's worth of news in a video. It just doesn't really seem like an interesting topic. But in this case here, I think that this is actually a week that's worth going through all the various headlines and explain to you guys what's happening in the crypto world because it's so fascinating. So the news week started off on January 2nd when Cameron Winklevoss, yes, he's one of those bizarre twins from the Facebook movie you guys might remember, who they originally tried to steal the Facebook sort of business from Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not going to get into all that. But what they ended up doing was founding their own crypto exchange called Gemini. So Cameron pens a letter to this guy, Barry Silbert, who runs something called the Digital Currency Group, which owns Genesis. Now, Gemini, they actually had to halt their withdrawals after Genesis, who they lent their customer funds to, was forced to halt withdrawals thanks to the contagion from FTX. Now, in Cameron's letter, he said that after 2 months and repeated invitations of conversation with Barry, that Barry continues to engage in bad faith stall tactics. He also wrote that Barry keeps hiding behind lawyers and investment bankers to slow down the process. Cameron went on to say that the Digital Currency Group, again, the company that owns Genesis, owes $1.675 billion, which is the same amount that Genesis owes Gemini's customers. Now let's move forward one day to January 3rd. All eyes are on a Manhattan federal courtroom. Sam Bankman-Fried, the once CEO of the now defunct FTX, appeared on 8 criminal counts, including wire fraud and money laundering conspiracy. SBF is, of course, alleged to have used customer deposits to fund trades and losses for his Alameda Research hedge fund. He also used these funds to buy real estate and donate millions of dollars to political causes. In court, SBF's lawyers said that he would not plead guilty to these allegations, consistent with his 500 Twitter Space appearances, where he suggested his negligence is not criminal liability. U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan set a date for his trial being October 2nd, which could lead to SBF facing up to 115 years in prison if convicted. Additionally, there's been a ton of talk around SBF's bail, which was set at $250 million. Now, there were 4 co-signers on the bond, 2 of which were his parents. The other 2 remain anonymous. The U.S. judge actually granted SBF's request to not publicize these names, which of course has all the conspiracy theories out there going nuts, wondering who gave SBF this money to at least temporarily get out of jail. So this obviously has all the conspiracy nut bars out there going crazy, and rightfully so. Why did these 2 individuals give SBF all of this money to get to sit at home and play League of Legends? Did he have some sort of leverage on them? Are they, politically affiliated with someone? I don't know. But it's very strange. And of course, we'd all like to know where this money came from. And if it's even originally linked to the fraud that he's accused of in the first place. That same day that SBF is in the courtroom, the Federal Reserve, Federal Deposit Insurance Corp., and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency sent out a joint statement. They have concerns with the safety and soundness of bank business models that are highly concentrated in crypto. They say that companies taking part in the crypto ecosystem, including companies who help issue or even hold these tokens stored in the public form, are most likely to fail to follow safe and sound banking practices. Okay, so now let's move on to the next day, January 4th. The New York's Department of Financial Services said they had reached a settlement with Coinbase, which includes the company paying a $50 million penalty and investing $50 million in compliance. Look, this is no small penalty. The settlement was due to what the Department of Financial Services calls the significant deficiencies across Coinbase's compliance program, including the KYC/AML/TMS and screening programs. The department showcased a number of issues. One issue was when a person opened an account on their platform under the guise that it was for the business they work for. After that account was opened, the person was then able to raise the daily withdrawal limit by 50 times, which was granted despite a total lack of account activity and therefore no evidence that the existing thresholds were insufficient for the customer's activity. Then that employee in one day wired more than $150 million from the business to the Coinbase account, turned it into various cryptocurrencies, and moved it to a wallet outside of Coinbase. That same day, the Department of Justice announces that they are in the process of seizing shares of Robinhood owned by Sam Bankman-Fried. He owned more than 56 million Robinhood shares worth around $465 million. The DOJ did not believe that the shares were the property of the bankruptcy estate. In other words, they don't believe that SBF should have access to these Robinhood shares based on everything that's going on with FTX. Also, on January 4th, the same day, another U.S. judge rules that Celsius users who participated in the Celsius Earn program would be treated as unsecured creditors. The decision is said to be the result of the terms of use employed by Celsius, which approximately 99.9% of Earn users had accepted. So this means that Celsius customers will be last in the pecking order for repayment. It's estimated that Celsius had around 600,000 Earn users with a combined total asset amount of approximately $4.2 billion. Now, I got to say, we interviewed Alex Mashinsky multiple times on my live stream, and we asked him point blank, are you running a Ponzi scheme? And he kept saying no. And then Jay, the editor at the Deep Dive, kept prying, how are you giving your users these yields? And they could never explain it. It was so telling, and it was fascinating because here we're interviewing this guy that we're pretty sure is running a Ponzi scheme, and we're trying to get him to admit it, but for whatever reason, it didn't smell right. Now, I feel awful for those users who put money into Celsius, but I gotta say, if something smells too good to be true, in this case, or in most cases, it probably is. Nobody's giving you, 17% APR returns yield on your crypto without doing something sketchy, i.e. probably running a Ponzi scheme. Okay, so on that same day, we're still on January 4th, we get a plot twist. It's reported that Daniel Friedberg, FTX's former legal counsel, so their top lawyer, he has been reported to be cooperating with U.S. prosecutors. The lawyer was said to give up details about FTX to several different interested officials, such as the Department of Justice, the SEC, and the FBI. So this is very fascinating. Daniel Friedberg is connected to Stuart Hoegner, who is the legal counsel for Tether. Now, Tether, if you're unaware, is considered the grand salami of crypto frauds. It's a stable coin that nobody knows how well capitalized it is. They've never put out audited statements, though at multiple times they said that they were going to, and then they just bring up these sort of attestation reports. The whole thing is just wildly fascinating, has all the crypto critics on pins and needles wondering what's going to happen with Tether. Now, Alameda, which again was SBF's hedge fund, they were the largest customer of Tether. So Friedberg knows some things, and the question is he going to actually say anything to the DOJ, FBI, or SEC? If I were given the chance to bet on if he would say anything damaging about Tether, I would certainly bet against this. Now, there's one other thing that happened on January 4th that I got to get to. Logan Paul issued a response video on YouTube to Coffeezilla for calling him out on his Crypto Zoo mess. Logan swears that Crypto Zoo was not a scam. He also suggests that he's going to sue Coffeezilla for defamation. If you ask me, and just this whole Crypto Zoo thing, which was supposed to be some sort of NFT game where NFTs would hatch eggs and they'd turn into new NFTs or something, I don't know. The whole thing is just a gigantic mess. The white paper was clearly not written by somebody with a legal background. I look at the entire situation and I think, yikes, this sounds a lot like it would pass the Howey test, which means that it's technically a security, which means that it probably should have been registered with the SEC. If you ask me my opinion, I think that Coffeezilla is the least of Logan's problems, and it's only a matter of time until the SEC swoops down and says, Mr. Paul, we want to have a chat with you about these unregistered securities you were selling. Moving on to January 5th, the next day, we find out that FTX's engineer Nishad Singh is being investigated by several different federal agencies and could see charges against himself as soon as the end of January. Also on that day, it gets announced that SEC files an objection to Binance US's proposed $1 billion acquisition of Voyager Digital. The complaint says that the SEC needs more info on Binance US's operations to close the deal. Some minor news that got reported on that day is that the SEC is now seeking details from the firms that actually invested in FTX. They want to understand the due diligence process that these companies went through before investing in a fraud of such epic proportions. Good luck to the SEC there. I'm sure every investor wants to talk about the most embarrassing investment they ever made and talk about their thought process that got them to make such a stupid investment. That same day, we get a bit of a bombshell. Silvergate Capital, who's one of the crypto banks that link up the crypto exchanges with the users, well, guess what? They had a bit of a bank run and they had to meet $8.1 billion of withdrawals in calendar year Q4. This brought customer deposits down to $3.8 billion compared to $11.9 billion in the third quarter of 2022. Now, to meet withdrawals, the company announced that they had to sell $5.2 billion of debt securities that they were holding on their balance sheet, and they ended up losing $718 million doing this. That same day, my old pal Alex Mashinsky finds himself in a little bit of a dilly of a pickle. The New York Attorney General's office announces that they are filing a lawsuit against him, the former CEO of Celsius, saying that he lied to investors, concealed Celsius's dire financial condition, and failed to register as required by state law. They say that Mashinsky repeatedly claimed that Celsius made safe, low-risk investments and only lent assets to credible and reputable entities. However, investors' assets were routinely exposed to high-risk counterparties and strategies that ultimately resulted in Celsius going bankrupt. And finally, we're back to our boy Barry Silbert and the Digital Currency Group. The Wall Street Journal reports that Genesis, again, that crypto broker that supposedly ripped off Gemini and their users, well, they are now considering bankruptcy and have laid off 30% of their staff, leaving them with only 145 employees. And we still got another day in the week, so who knows what could happen over the weekend. I'm filming this on Friday night, and I'm wondering why people were putting money into these things that had no regulatory oversight. And even we've got some pretty sophisticated investors like the Winklevosses, the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, the Caisse de Populaire out of Quebec. Look, there are some very credible, sophisticated investors that participated in this space and ultimately have egg on their face for doing so. And I got to wonder, what were all these investors thinking? Was the Bitcoin bro in the office just too loud and they were just feeling so humiliated as Bitcoin went from 12,000 to 60,000 and Bitcoin bro kept telling them, what are you guys thinking? We need more crypto. We got to be playing the crypto names. You know, the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, during their due diligence process, they reached out to FTS, sent a whole bunch of questions, and it's reported by the Globe and Mail that FTX never even responded. They didn't respond to the questions, and the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund still went through with, I think it was a $95 million investment. So we got to be asking ourselves here, is risk capital and crypto, it's just, oh my gosh, I'm going to look so foolish if crypto is the new thing and I don't have any exposure. Where was the diligence? What were people thinking? All right, everybody, thanks for watching my rant here and just breaking down the news. If you participate in crypto, please let us know in the comment section. I want to know how you participated and how it worked out for you. I know a lot of people who made a lot of money in the space, and I know a lot of people who lost a lot of money in the space. Would love to hear your thoughts. And if you have anything to add to any of this news flow, please let us know in the comment section. All right. Thank you, everybody.